right, so we're very excited to be working with Woodland Mills. We actually have quite a few little odds and ends jobs for it, and these Woodland Mills sawmills have come down in price so much it's very cost effective to cut your own wood. We live in southern Ontario, but we have one of the largest wood bushes around. Andy's got an entire bush full of wood that we can cut up. Hardwood, softwood, and that actually works out perfect. We still got a bunch of wood to do inside the shop, and HM130MAX is actually perfect for this. And we're actually going to cut some wood for Kevin's wagon. So is that
it's pretty good.
It's not bad?
Good enough.
Good enough. So we're gonna put this thing together right away. It's a Canadian company located out of Port Perry, and we love working with Canadian companies. And what's more Canadian than cutting your own wood while drinking black coffee with a touch of maple syrup in it? Here we go. Now I love actually using the pieces of equipment that we fix. So Andy's actually cleared a whole bunch of paths and took a whole bunch of wood out of his bush and his parents' bush already with the skid steer that we fixed up on the channel. That was a no-runner when we got it. It's actually working out really, really good. Andrew's getting really good at popping the tracks back on by himself in the middle of nowhere. And while he's getting the wood out of the bush and bringing some of that here, we're gonna be putting this thing together and putting it through its paces right away. All right, there's the mill, but before we get into that, we're gonna put the trailer together because a trailer only makes sense. There's a few of us that are gonna be using this mill. We've got woods all over the place, bush all over the place, and a trailer only makes sense. Plus, if you wanna do this as a little side gig, you can tow the trailer to a customer's place and cut the wood for them, and then leave all the mess there and go home and blow it off. You don't even have to, you just drive down the road, have all the shavings come off down the highway, and then you're ready to go for the next job. But we'll slap this together, not too complicated. Make it square, make it straight, and make sure all your nuts and bolts are tight. Here we go.
Hey, what are you doing, Rich?
You know what, I feel as we're putting this together, we're gonna become more and more Canadian. I think it's gonna be a good day.
All right, let's do this, bud.
Here we go. All right, so first things first, we can just take this back strap off here and lay the whole cutting head down. And we got our Princess Auto socket set here. Of course, they're metric bolts. If there's some Robertsons here holding some screws together, I think that's about as Canadian as it gets. I gotta remember to grab all of these because I pay my kids 25 cents for every piece of steel that they find in the driveway. But that's a way for them to make money and me to save money with flat tires. And then I charge them 25 cents every time they leave the lights on in the house. So, Tuesdays, we have No Tech Tuesdays, and my wife likes doing puzzles, and she's like, you wanna help me with a puzzle? And I'm like, no, I've got enough puzzles in the shop. I don't need to do puzzles for fun in my leisure time. Okay, so I loved Legos when I was a kid, and I told my daughter, this is exactly like Legos, except it's for big boys. You got all the parts that you need. You got all the nuts and bolts that you need. Start putting it together just like the manual says. Don't skip any steps. When the bolt comes in from the outside to the in, you have to make sure you do it from the outside in and not from the inside out. Little things like that, you got to pay attention. Which way does the angle go? Which way? Pay attention to the pieces marked in red. This is the front. This is the rear. It's different. And if you don't follow those instructions, it becomes very frustrating. But what we're doing is using the skid from the trailer. We're gonna grab a couple 2x4s, put it on top, and we're basically building the subframe for the trailer on that. But we have to use pieces from the mill to help with the assembly of the trailer. So it's pretty interesting. So the 2 goes up, 4 goes to the side. Do not tighten anything. Snug everything up so you can still move it. That is key to everything. Don't get too excited and start tightening things down. That will be a lot of wasted time. Okay, so it's important to take a break once in a while. Relax, don't get too stressed out about nuts and bolts. Stretch, and then throw timbers. Give her a wipe and try again.
Oh, yeah.
Ready?
Oh,
I'll do it a little bit farther back.
yeah.
I want to do overhand, but ready?
Yep.
Oh, it was in and bounced out. One more.
One more, that's it. Can't be defeated on this one. Yeah.
All right, so it's very important when you get to this stage. Basically, the trailer is the bottom of the frame. You have to leave the nuts and bolts loose, and you have to look at each picture and make sure that the hole's orientation is in the proper direction. If you don't, it's going to lead you to drinking very early in the day. And I know it's really early, but
Is that Richardson syrup?
that is 100% Richardson's maple syrup. Now, I'm not saying that drinking this early is bad.
Bottoms up.
Bottoms up, buddy. Oh, you can really taste the smokiness in that one. I like it. Where's your coffee?
You might have a drinking problem.
But hey, it's Canadian thing. All right, from here, we're gonna start snugging things up a little tighter. Now we have to shrink the thing together and tighten up all the gaps. Here we go. All right, so this is a pretty crucial step. We've got our jacks underneath our ends, and we can kind of twist the table a little bit while it's being supported on the 2x4s in the middle here. Make sure your 2x4s aren't too long. If they are a bit too long, just make sure they're angled so that they're not bumping out and hitting up against the sides. And then what we want to do is make sure that these plates are even all the way along. So just like tightening down a cylinder head on an engine, we want to start in the middle and work our way out. We want to make sure that this gap is nice and even here, and that the gap between this plate and our angle iron is even all the way along as well. So you can adjust that with your jacks on the outside. And then we're only going to tighten the outside bolt here, and then the two on the middle right here, and the one over on that side, and then we're gonna squeeze the whole thing together with ratchet straps, closing up this gap. Again, we don't need to go crazy. We'll tighten everything up again afterwards, just snug. Basically, so it stays in place now, and when you ratchet it together, it doesn't come back apart again afterwards. See how that gap is uneven? We gotta push down on that. So we want this gap even and the line along the top.
Break time, finally.
How do you think it's going so far?
I thought I'd be sawing logs by now.
Yeah, me too. I am kind of tired. You want some milk?
Fresh bag.
Fresh bag.
Thank you. Want some dill pickle chips?
Nah, I got my ketchup chips. Thanks though.
Yeah, hey, no problem, man. Alright, do a good day. I'll go chase some beavers later.
I like beavers.
Alright. Sap should be running soon.
I might have to watch the Leafs lose this afternoon though.
Yeah, I had my Leafers doing not too bad. Blue Jays didn't make the playoffs this year.
Next year's our year.
Next year.
Next year. So now what we want to do, now that we got them pretty level, is just pull them nice and tight to each other. We want this gap to close up in between here. Oh man, look at that. Look, there's even a hole here. Oh, is that to like center it? That's pretty good. Yeah, tighten these two and the bottom two, and then I'll do the other side.
Oh, man. All right, so we're just making sure that the trailer part's square. Is that right?
So you're gonna go right on the very corner there. I've got 593 and a half.
Yep.
Okay. Other side. Yeah, I got 593 and a half.
Duh. Way to go. Score.
Okay, so we made sure that all the gaps here are nice and tight and that the level here is even on both of them all the way along. Also, we eyed it up and went straight down to make sure that there was no waves. Then we went back corner to corner, measured 593 centimeters and a half to this corner here, to that corner, and then to the opposite corners. And we were a little bit off, so we just put a strap on there to pull it. So now it's square to each other. And now we can start tightening these gussets. What do you call them?
Bunks.
Bunks. All right, we can start tightening these bunks, but we've got a square on them as well. And we make sure that the bunks are also square, nice and tight all over. But if you stop dropping it, like, it helps if you don't drop the tools and just tighten all the nuts and bolts. Okay, so the next thing is to level everything 100%. We're just gonna check it again. Come on, Andy, this is last year's model. You can't use that stick. So we're gonna level it. We're gonna, now that it's square, and then we can tighten all of these bolts down properly. Get out of here, you hoser. Okay, now that we're closed, we're leveled this way, we're not leveled this way. So we can straighten that out with the jacks on the end, but we don't want things to move. So we're gonna tighten a few more bolts from the inside out. So work from the middle and working our way out that way. Proper torque is about 6 ugga-duggas.
How many ugga-duggas is that in Mennonite? That's what I'm working on over on this side. Hand tools.
Can't help your poor. There's a tiny lip here, so we're just gonna pry this so that they're nice and even, and we'll be golden. On the end have these little hooks on them, so don't tighten the very end ones. Alright, so we got the crate out from underneath, we've got our jacks and our first cross members in. Now is a good time to level it all again off of these jacks. Put your eye on it, make sure that it's nice and straight going down, and check, make sure that it's square one more time. Now that every one of these bolts on here is tight.
Got this thing probably, well, we got the whole trailer part assembled. We're just gonna hold off on putting the trailer wiring on. We're gonna put the head on.
We're not gonna lie, this is not a 3-hour job. Quite a bit to make sure that you start level and then you end level. But I don't think we'll be cutting today, but hopefully we'll put the head on and we'll go from there. So first things first, we take these brackets, start putting some bearings on it, and our plans are somewhere here, but we're like a lot less parts. Like it's mostly gone.
It's a lot of bolts.
Especially when you use all of them.
Yeah.
Okay, the rollers go to the inside, the bolts face the outside with the nuts on the outside, I could not get these bars in through the Teflon, so I had to pull these off, stick the Teflon in on either side, and then put the bolts back in again. A little tricky for this one. If you take it, slide it like this with the U facing this way, and then stand it up, and then slide the bar so it's almost out, so you can drop the plate in. That works for that. You gotta make sure that when you stand it up that this is all the way to the bottom, because otherwise that thing's just gonna slide and bang on the bottom. We don't want that. We don't want no drama. I think we just stand it up on the ground and then we can put the top section on.
Yeah.
It's not gonna rain, is it?
No, I don't think so.
There's no this guy. All right, we left everything loose until we get the rollers on the rails. Yeah, everything else is pretty straightforward. Okay, so in our manual, we've got trailer stuff, and then they figured we must be getting frustrated by now because we thought we would be cutting wood. So it skips straight to, ta-da, you're done. But luckily the manual is online, so we realized that we did get these bolts in the right spot. The pulley goes on the bottom one on the main arch here, and that obviously lines up with that bolt there. The tank gets bolted to the frame, and there was an update on that. These rubber straps help with the vibration. If you have just the tabs that bolt into here, eventually they'll crack and your tank will leak. Except in the winter, that doesn't leak anymore. Then
it just doesn't even flow.
It doesn't even flow, yeah. So, the bracket for the height adjustment goes right here, and we're ready to put our plate on, and then that will house the crank. All right, so we got the handle on, just a couple of flange bolts that goes right through, down for if it's on trailer, up if it's sitting stationary. We got our pulleys and our cables all done, so very straightforward. You can even see which one it goes on when you line up the cables with the pulley by eye. We've got our handle in here, and that does the guide, and that's more for where the water comes out. You don't want all your water running off the log before you get there, so just a quick slide there. Height adjustment, which is actually magnetic, which is kind of cool. We've got standard. No, that's also standard.
Yeah, who cuts in metric? No one cuts in metric.
Canadians.
Canadians?
No,
Do
we
we?
don't. If it's for government, it is. And then got our water tank with our line. Short one goes right there. I almost kind of want to tie that up somehow, but you got the other one that loops through your holder here. Then we've got our throttle bolted down. Hour meter just gets bolted down, and that just shakes with vibration. As it vibrates, that starts counting. And there's no oil in the engine, so we gotta grab some oil. There's no gas in the engine, so you can't just crank it for 20 minutes expecting it to fire up. And there's latches that go in. There's the latches to install on both sides, and then the scale gets bolted from the inside when you open it up.
All right, so all that's left is just for us to pick this up, put it on the trailer.
Yeah, like we could pick it up.
Yeah, we
and
could
just
put
throw
it
on.
Yeah,
it's like it's not bad, but like.
Yeah. Well, you got your curler's knee.
Yeah,
it went down too
I
hard.
went down pretty hard on the curling.
Yeah.
I was just giving her, eh? And I was sweeping, and I don't want to brag. I was giving her, and then I just gave her a bit too much, and I came down. I hurt my knee pretty bad. So,
yeah.
So you know, like you had that thing too, right?
Oh, I tweaked my back as a slap shot, and I got to here. So I better not, because I got a game tomorrow.
Okay.
6 a.m. So.
Okay, so
we'll just tractor maybe.
We have a tractor. Like we could use a tractor to just lift this on.
Don't need it.
Don't need it.
Might as well use it.
Might as well use it.
Yeah.
Like we have it. So.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't need to show off. Everyone knows how strong we are, I think.
Because we want to make sure that the blade is nice and even side to side. So we can go and see that this is 9 and 15/16. And this is now 10 and an 1/8. So we have to just lengthen this rod up here. So then you're not cutting shingles. And
It is tightened all the way, but that's because that's where the cable was tight when I assembled it, but it was sitting on an uneven ground, which is why this needs to get dropped down. And then it's 16.
All right, so this is my bad. This is the manual for the trailer, and then it kind of jumps right to your head is done, and we couldn't really find the book for the how to assemble the head. And then the manual, I thought, for the Kohler engine was in this little handy holder right here, but so was the manual for the entire unit. And this has the all the head setup stuff on there. So even though we found it online and we did it, your manual is also in here. So we can double check, make sure we did everything right. And then we'll see what oil goes inside here, which is in this manual. And then we're just about ready to fire it up. Because the engine does not come with oil in it, so make sure you put some good oil in it. And if you take the lid of the battery box off, your funnel works just a little bit better. It's a good rule of thumb to check the oil level with the dipstick in the hole like this. Don't screw it all the way in. Put it in without screwing it in and check your level. That little bit does make a big difference, and as far as I know, every engine that I check, and I've never had an issue, check the oil with it bottomed out, check it in, good, screw it in. Just a scooch more. All right, so battery, you can get an electric start, which will let you keep cutting because this is a physical job. You're gonna get tired, so battery's not a bad idea. Now, if you have a quad and you don't really use it during the winter, take your quad battery and use it during the winter. And if you have a snowmobile, take the battery out of the snowmobile and use it in the summer, because the worst thing for these batteries is just not getting used. So it sucks when you go to start it and it doesn't work. There's nothing more frustrating. There's a negative ground cable and your positive right there. So connect your positive, negative just needs to be grounded. We can ground it nicely to the other grounds right here, then everything's nice on one plug. So it says right on here, no E15 or E85 gas. That's gasoline with ethanol in it. So here in Canada, you gotta get 91 octane in there, just because the ethanol gums up if you don't use it for a while. And nobody likes that. So it is good to run it empty, better than leaving gas in there that can gum up the carburetor. Because when you want to cut, they're not gonna lie, the engine does all the work. For the first half hour, don't run water on your blades, only because that water will run onto your belts, and your belts need a little bit of time to break in before they get sopping wet. So generally you want to use lubricant, like right off the get-go.
Yeah.
But this one, you just want to work it a little bit, you know, tease it a little bit.
Go dry for the first 30.
Yeah, get the belts in the right mood, and then you can add lubricant.
All right, so you're gonna want to have these blocks here on the opposite side of your throttle over there. That's just so that when you're loading it from this side, all the action is over on the throttle side. This side you only want to have as a backstop. So
if you have it backwards, you have to walk all the way around the tongue to get to your controls. Nobody wants to walk that far.
No.
Unless,
I mean, we could.
If we got skates on, it's nice and quick. You know, then you wanna. It's okay to get a little speed as you're going if everything's frozen. Yeah, and then go. But if you're just, you know, wearing work boots
For general purposes. We'll keep it like this for now.
All right. So I noticed we were getting a little bit of a tip on the rollers, and that's because we assembled it on the ground, the uneven ground. So once it was on here, it just loosened the 4 bolts that hold the 2 bars together, let it settle, and basically just drop down because the holes are all like a slightly bit bigger than they need to be. And now she's just perfect, nice and solid all the way along. It rolls really, really nice. Don't start adjusting your rails because we spent a lot of time adjusting the rails. It's not your rails.
Choke, fuel on.
First start, we'll let it run for a second, let it warm up a tiny bit. Alright, so we are back at Andy's neighbor's who has a pile of wood for us. So nice that it's mobile, basically just resetting it so it's kind of level. We're going to cut as much wood as we can, and we're actually going to cut some wood for Kevin's wagon. So all that custom sized wood, that actually works out perfect for this little girl, because you can't just go to the mill and say I want 3-inch wide by 8 inches tall or whatever for the runners on the hay wagon. So yeah, is that
it's pretty good.
it's not bad?
Good enough.
Good enough. Hey, aren't you that YouTuber?
I might be. I took a wrong turn back here, and well, I guess I found the right spot.
Yeah, it's Andy, right?
Yeah, that's right, Rich. Nice to
Right
meet
on.
you. Yeah.
Are you busy for like next couple hours?
Yeah, I think we can swing something. Sure, we can. Sawing wood, I'm in.
If you guys don't know who this is the Sawing with Sandy, that famous YouTuber. If you haven't subscribed to him yet, definitely do that. But he has a Woodland Mills HM130MAX, and he's gonna come and show us how to set it up, just so that us newbies don't cut our fingers off, and make this thing last as long as possible by doing everything the right way. So close enough or perfect?
Well, you know, we'll go perfect with the sawing. Close enough with the leveling. It looks good to me though so far.
So when the customer is right beside you, you yell perfect.
That's right.
And then quietly you're like, yeah, that's pretty good. That's good enough. Just keep growing. Nice, we'll level this up, and then let's go over the whole machine because it's brand new. We cut one pine log. I want to make sure that we're doing it right, and then we can cut some white oak for Kevin's hay wagon.
That sounds great.
All right, so you wake up in the morning, you go out to your mill. What's the first thing you do?
I get my sludge. So aside from sawing, I make sure I got my coffee, my sludge. And then assuming that's okay and I've got a backup, then I come to the sawmill and make sure there's fuel, just like every engine, make sure there's oil in it.
Yeah, so we got oil. I've got no leaks. I checked it this morning. It has 2 hours on it now. So we've worn in our engine. We used it for 20 minutes with no water, so that you work the belts, right?
Yep.
And this caught my eye, but that's the way it's supposed
that's
to be.
supposed to ride loose like that. I usually check to make sure there's no buildup of like hard dust on the belts. That'll happen with time. And yeah, I get rid of that. I make sure the exit hole there is open. You get bark sometimes sticking, and it builds up with sawdust and it'll kick the blade. This is normally back here, and then there's a little nut or a bolt that goes in there. This is just your blade guide. And
we have to. I don't have that bolt.
Finish building it.
we can film that again without it.
Yeah, do that again.
I didn't mean to
pretend like it's not in there.
The other thing I check is this right here, being a new sawmill. This, if it vibrates, it can loosen up, and if that loosens up and you don't catch it, it can get into your blade and kick the blade off. So I just make sure that's tight. I make sure the guard's tight. Sawdust is out of there. Make sure there's no solid bits on the belt. That can cause the tension to bump up when it shouldn't be.
Okay.
Aside from that, you know, this is a new sawmill, but I always check the bearings with the blade untensioned, and we're assuming everything's good, brand new mill. Make sure I have lubrication in it.
So what do you do at the, like, you just run water, but
Yeah.
it gets cold in Canada.
Yeah.
So what do you do?
Water's done now. So last night back home, -6 Celsius. I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit, but it's cold. And so the water's gone. I run straight washer fluid. So that's, yeah, I run that all winter long. I'll come up here and I'll just press this, and then you can see the lubrication come out, and I'll just watch to see how much comes out. And assuming I'm happy with it, I'll start it. But assuming I'm not, then I'll adjust the amount of lubrication there.
And you just want steady drips on there.
Yeah, it depends what I'm sawing. Like when I'm sawing like red pine, white pine, it's got a lot of pitch in it, so I'll put more lubrication. Pitch will cause friction, and then friction will cause heat. And if you get too much heat in the blade, you can actually cause the blade to expand slightly, and that drops your tension. So I keep enough water to keep the blade cool. So after I'm done cutting, I'll just put my hand on it after I'm done cutting. And then
With the machine off.
exactly, safe. And assuming the blade's not hot, I know I'm probably in good shape for lubrication.
If it's steaming while the water's running
Yeah.
on it, it's too hot.
Too much. Yeah, so that's lubrication, and then assuming that's good, everything's clean down here, bearings are good, everything's in place, then I'll go to tensioning. I typically use a torque wrench. I've used that for years and years. There's actually a sticker back here, and this sticker is a little bit different than mine. I'm sure the methods have changed over the years, but on mine it says 2.5 to 3 turns, but it also says a foot-pound rating. So I use a torque wrench, and the torque wrench can go right in that little hole at the end. Otherwise, 2.5 to 3 turns of this handle here.
Do you loosen anything off, or you just
Yeah,
just turn it?
nothing gets touched here, nothing there, nothing on the other side. It's all with this.
It's all here.
It's all there. And there's another method as well. You can actually tighten it until it's flush here.
Yeah, and that was in the instructions. I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure it's 25 foot-pounds, right?
25 is what I use.
It's easier to stick the torque wrench on and just click it rather than turn it, like back it off and turn it the 2.5 to 3 turns.
Yeah,
right?
and that's
So-
sort of what I like. And I don't know, I'm sort of stubborn like a mule. So best practice is to take the tension off the blade, unless you're going to be just leaving it for a short time, like a few hours, and then you're having lunch and coming back. But if you're leaving it overnight, the idea is you untension the blade and then you retension it the next day.
Okay, so that's the same way as taking the tension off your torque wrench.
Yeah,
Now
that's
here's-
important right
now
there.
here's the question. Do
Yeah.
you take the tension off your torque wrench?
And
every
I'm going to
time?
be completely honest. I never used to do that because I thought, I don't need to do it, but I do it now. So
Why?
whether I don't want the tension, the torque reading to be inaccurate. That's the big
Okay,
thing.
all right.
Yeah.
I thought maybe you had something terrible happen.
No, nothing
Okay.
bad, but
You weren't torquing down the rod bolts on your brand new engine build.
no
and then
head
windowed the
studs
block?
snapping off, calling Rich, hey, can I drop this? Nothing happening.
All right, tension's great. Now what?
Yeah, tension's good. We're ready to start. The only other thing that I would do is I would make sure we have a good blade on there, but assuming it's tensioned, it must be good. So I think we basically just choke it, turn the fuel on, and this is a electric start, so we can fire it right up. One thing that I will mention, it is getting colder here. On this side of the air filter, you can actually rotate it, and this is common with these small engines. You'll see there's the snowflake symbol. This is for heat. So basically, if you want heated air going into the air filter, so in the wintertime, you have the arrows line up, and then in the warmer months, you have these arrows line up the sun.
I'm pretty chilly already, and I'm gonna forget. So let's put it on the snowflake.
That's
and leave
right.
it there.
Yeah.
What are these for? Did you touch them?
So in a perfect world, you will never touch these. So this would be the drive side band wheel. This one over here. This is controlling the alignment of that drive side band wheel.
I see.
And the trouble is, if you get in here and you start adjusting things and you don't know what you adjusted, it's very difficult to get it back. And you might spend an awful lot of time trying that.
It'll throw the blade off?
It'll throw the blade tracking off. So what you want to do if your blade tracking's off, and it says all this in the manual, you always start with the follower side band wheel, that one over there. And the adjustment, just like on this side, is on the back of the band wheel, right here. And this one is actually a little bit different than mine, but it is the same location. And this will be where you adjust that follower band wheel alignment. But okay. I would suggest if you don't have to touch it, don't touch it. And this is coming from a guy who's done both. So don't go down that road if you don't have to take it.
What's this little guy for?
So that will prevent you from inadvertently hitting the log stop. Mine's folded up right now.
So you want it,
typically it'd be down, yeah.
I see.
If you forget to drop these log stops down, when you're rolling the saw through, it hits the log stop. But anyone who's sawn lumber for any length of time and says they haven't hit a log stop is probably not telling the truth, because I have. And it's because I didn't have that down. So keep it down. You just gotta be careful with this being in this position. Every once in a while, if this wasn't tight, this could creep back. You don't want to get into your blade. So you just gotta make sure it's in position and tightened. And that way you can safeguard yourself from the log stop. And you can also make sure you don't damage a blade. One thing about that blade I'll mention as well, if that blade starts to show signs of getting dull, if it feels like there's any resistance, I switch it immediately, because you might end up ruining a piece of lumber if it starts getting dull. The blade will start to creep on you.
Yeah.
And obviously the lumber being valuable, you don't want it to go to waste. So I switch it sort of proactively. One thing I find with these clamps here, so they do have the ability to be tightened in place. Truthfully, I never tighten it in place. The actual...
So the jam, right?
Yeah, so basically when you're clamping it, it pushes back and then it holds itself. But you just gotta watch when it's all the way this way, and that's like that. When you're running the sawmill, you can actually hit it with the wheel. And you just gotta be careful, because it hasn't happened to me, but it's been close, where the wheel jumps just slightly, and you don't want the saw head falling off the track. That'd be a bad day.
All right, and as you're pushing it, what are you listening for? What are you looking for?
Yeah, so I'm listening for what the engine wants, essentially. So if the engine is telling me it's had enough, that means I'm maybe pushing too fast, so I let the blade cut. Just like with a table saw or a miter saw or something, when you're cutting, you can feel resistance. You don't want to push to the point where there's resistance, because that means you're either pushing too fast or your blade's too dull. And depending on the situation, you'd slow down or switch the blade out to a sharp one.
We are in the middle of the bush now, and the ground is nice and solid here, but say you start getting out of level, what are the telltale signs? You just start cutting crooked wood, or?
Well, yeah, definitely that is something that happens. If you start to see waves in the lumber, one of the things it could be is your blade's going dull, but it could also be something related to your sawmill being level. Usually the indicator for me when I'm moving the saw head down the track, if one of the four wheels stops turning, that means to me that it's no longer touching the top of the rail here. So it's probably dipped down in one way or another. So then I'll get out the level again and I'll make sure everything's nice and level and good to go that way.
Okay. I think that's it. You want to cut some wood?
Yeah.
Right on.
Don't have to ask me twice. So Rich is about to put the logs on here, and he was just asking me about what end do you put on first. You put the small end on or the big end? And truthfully, it depends which way it goes on the tractor. I don't often get off the tractor and reposition it. So if the big end's coming up this side, that's fine. If it's the small end, that's fine to me as well. This is a little bit different than the red pines. If you've seen me on my channel, I cut predominantly red pines. We've got an older white oak here. I really like cutting hardwood. I just don't have a chance too often, so this will be a treat for me. It's interesting to see what's going to come out of this, especially. You never do know. Assuming there's no nails in it, it'll be good nonetheless.
We'll take the thunder off.
Oh, I can't wait. We're cutting into this white oak here. All that I know is that it's going on the wagon. So I don't know if it's going on that wagon or if it's going on Kevin's wagon. But either way, it's going on a wagon.
Should have been a surgeon. I've been doing it for years. He did better than I can. So. I won't tell him that though. One thing that we'll do is just check to make sure there's as little dirt in the bark as possible. Obviously the bark has been long gone, but if there is any that we can get rid of, that'll keep the blade sharp.
So what do you find works best?
I use an old brush.
Like a windshield brush? Or
I
like
do use that.
wire wheel?
Like a brush for cleaning the shop. Sometimes I'll use an actual push broom. Depending the time of year, if it's winter, you're better off because there's no dirt to get in the bark. But any brush you can use. I've also used a blower, like a backpack blower.
So put her tight?
Tight, yeah. This log here is pretty much the same diameter. It's a little bit bigger at this end, but sometimes I'll put a shim under the far end, or Woodland Mills has a toe board, and you can just lift the toe, lift the one end of the log so that the center is level with the sawmill. Once your sawmill's in place, just take a measure of where the blade is in relation to the top of the bunk. And so if I look there, I might take it, well, it's funny, that's right at a foot. So that's 12 inches. And then I do the same thing on the other side. And assuming that everything is set up right, which it is, it'll be the same measurement on the left side and the right side. And then I just make sure that 12 inches corresponds to what this is. And so in this case, you can see it was on the mark, but it was on a different mark. So all I would do here is, you could move this if it'll go to it. Ours won't. So then you can actually just slide this up. And then when that is where 12 inches is, you can tighten that up. And then I would just check again. And that's it. Before we start, I'll take a tape measure and I'll measure how high the log stops are. Just so when I'm setting the height, I don't cut them. The other thing, we just push the blade guide in as close to the log as it'll go. Yeah. Heard it before. Sometimes, like, see how loose the throttle cable is?
Yeah.
Will that go tighter up there, I wonder?
Oh yeah.
It just sounds like it's got more in it. This one's got room to just loosen this off.
Yeah.
Like mine is backed nearly all the way out.
Take that little layer off and look at that. That's beautiful. Nice.
I always look at the first cut, and if there's no like teeth marks, you know what I mean, like where you see vertical lines, then I know the blade must be set right, the teeth must be set right, and the blade must be sharp. So this looks real good. See how all you see is very faint marks?
Yeah. And this is hard too, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah. That looks good.
Right on. Rotate.
How an old log like that almost hits the burn pile, and then you cut it open and you realize you got good lumber.
So yeah, let's actually take another
tension in the boards. You can see there's a little bit left in it. So once we cut out that section of the can, we ended up getting the tension release. I don't know if it's at both ends, but down there for sure.
Yeah, I saw them up.
Yep. This is spoiling me though. I never get a real big piece of hardwood, at least not this long anyways. Normally I'm stealing from the firewood pile and the pieces are like, so this is a treat.
Nice.
We're just wrapping up for the day, and as I mentioned earlier, it's getting real cold here at night. So what I'm doing is I'm taking this this tube out, and then I'm opening this wide open. We'll drain all the water out. You know all the water's gone once you don't see it here in the site. And then the other thing I do is this little actuator. Once we press that, it allows the air to go through the tube, so all the water in here comes out. Otherwise, it'll trap water in here.
And it'll crack the line too, no? Or will it just swell enough?
Oh, I don't know. Luckily, I haven't been down that road before.
You've never done that before,
No, I've been
right?
close.
There you go.
Yeah, I guess if you just use antifreeze once it gets negative.
Yeah, I would probably this time of year I'd start putting the other washer fluid. Yep.
Yeah.
And then I don't have to do anything.
All right, that's it for us today. Sandy, thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks,
for
Rich.
taking
I
the time.
appreciate it.
Yeah, yeah.
Thanks, Andy.
Yeah.
So
Sandy.
we're not done cutting wood yet, but Andy's gonna keep cutting some wood. We're gonna give this wood to Kevin, who's gonna build some hay wagons, and then you'll see the mill on other projects as well. We're gonna cut the wood for the bed in the 55. We're gonna use the mill to cut the wood for the bed in the C10, and then that'll all be nice hardwood too. So pretty excited. Thank you, Woodland Mills, for trusting us with this. And yeah, thanks you guys for watching. Because remember, if you're not filthy, you're not rich. Get out there and work, and you might get some exercise at the same time. So here we go.